What's up, everyone? This was not planned. It's actually planned. I planned it. But figured I'd go on early here on the main channel. We got a full agenda today, though. Okay, I'm here. We can start. I'm gonna let it play for a second since I didn't give people a proper warning on this. See the topics? I figured out how to do that, how to do topics. Always love the unexpected masterclass. It's kind of a, this is a something that I've been thinking about doing, and I just decided, okay, I'm gonna do this right now. So I went, got some coffee, got notes all planned, got my whiteboard set up, and I'm ready to get going here. I'm gonna give it another second here. I see some of my friends here. No, I don't do any drugs. Advil. Plenty of Advil. I'll take my coffee. Well, I just, you know, sometimes I drink it black, sometimes drink it with cream and sugar. It really depends. Sometimes I drink tea. It's you know. Okay, on the agenda today. So I have a description up in the, that I actually put on the, coffee is a drug, I think, right? Caffeine is, anyways. Cheers from Russia. Cheers from Atlanta here. Yes. Okay. So let me do a little business here first. My Beato book I have on sale still through the weekend. Beato Music Academy. I have a new course up there that's called Advanced Harmonic Concepts for Composition and Improvisation. And I printed out a couple things just to show you. There's a couple things that are in there. For example, I have a whole arpeggio etude that goes over the chord progression. That is something to practice. It's pretty sophisticated here that will help you understand how to put these sounds and lines together, and how you get lines that sound like they have internal resolution. So that's the business there. The other thing, for those of you who don't know about my Rick Beato live channel, I pretty much go live every night, or at least 5 days a week. And you should click, it's called Rick Beato Live on YouTube, and you just click the, when you click it to subscribe, make sure you hit the notification buttons, because that one is specifically, you know, I go on around 10, sometimes it's 10:30. This is Eastern time. Beato book's on sale right now. I have a my book and my YouTube transcription pack, which is 103 pages. So between the two of them, it's over 400 pages. I have them on sale as a bundle for those of you that don't have either. Also, my YouTube transcription 100-page PDF is on sale. 103-page PDF is on sale right now too through the weekend. This is because I didn't get my course done in time for Cyber Monday. I'm trying to make up for it here. So there you go. I see Michelle on there. I didn't even call Michelle to tell her that I was doing this. Okay, so let's get down to some work here. There's going to be some new concepts that are addressed in here that I've never talked about before, that I wrote out this morning, and I've been thinking about making a video for it, but I think it's actually easier just to do it live. So we're going to do it live today. How many of you saw my new video on modes that I did on the composition in 21 modes? What's up, Frederick? If you haven't seen it, check it out. What I do is I start on Ionian, E Ionian, and I move through all 21 modes of the major, melodic minor, and harmonic minor scale. moving in either half step or whole step, depending on whether the next scale degree is a half step or whole step. If it's a half step, I move a whole step on it, just so I don't have the same two modes in a row. If I did Phrygian and Lydian that are half step apart, if I did C Phrygian and D flat Lydian, well, it's the same scale. So in that case, I would go C Phrygian and then D Lydian, just so that it would actually move up. And the reason I did this is because as a challenge, you have very few common tones between the scales. And I was talking about this last night, where if I have, for example, E Phrygian and F sharp Lydian, there are only two common tones between the two scales, which would be E sharp, which is F, which is E sharp is in F sharp Lydian, and B sharp, which is C. So you have the flat 6 and the flat 2 are common tones between the two scales. So in order to make these things connect and sound like a cohesive idea, these are notes that can sustain over between sections that are, that may be disjointed to a certain, to a certain degree. So anyways, nice job, Michelle. Okay, so do I give guitar lessons? No. I do on here. All right, so I will take questions here, but I'm gonna actually get into I want to get into some of this theory here. Okay, so one of the things that a lot of people have difficulty with, maybe not quite as many people that are on this channel, but a lot of people do, is actually understanding and remembering what modes are which. Most of you know the modes of the major scale, I assume, or maybe a lot of you do, but they don't know the modes of the melodic minor or the harmonic minor scale. And essentially what you have to do is you have to figure out ways to remember these. The first way to work on it is to actually just memorize the modes of the major scale, because essentially the other modes tell you what to do to the major scale or to any particular mode of the major scale, to how you alter it to make it the new scale. I'll give you an example. In the melodic minor scale, you have a scale called Dorian flat 2. Well, right there, it gives you exactly what Dorian flat 2 is. If you've got the Dorian scale, so let's say I do D Dorian, right? And I go, if I start here on D, and I'm going D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. So that's D Dorian. Well, Dorian flat 2 then is going to be exactly that. D, E flat, F, G, A, B, C, D. So that's Dorian flat 2. It tells you right there. But if you don't know what Dorian is, well, you're kind of, you're screwed. No. So you have to memorize the modes of the major scale first and what the scale degrees are. The easiest way to do it is not to memorize that whole step and half step pattern. It's definitely not, I wouldn't advise that. I always say, what do you do to a major scale to get the mode? This is the easiest way to remember it. So what you do is you memorize, you assume, or you learn that the major scale is just 1 through 7, and that series of whole steps and half steps will apply to all the other modes with the particular alterations. For example, if a major scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, to get a Dorian scale, we would flat the 3rd and flat the 7th. Okay, so you'd say that C Dorian, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which would be a C major scale. To make it C Dorian, you go 1, 2, flat 3rd, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, and then back to 1. So that's a Dorian scale. So in order to memorize these, you actually have to sit down and memorize them, because those particular notes in the scale are what gives the modes their particular characteristics. So Dorian has a flat 3 and flat 7. Phrygian has a flat 2, flat 3, flat 6 and flat 7. Lydian has a sharp 4. Mixed Lydian has a flat 7. Aeolian has a flat 3rd and flat 6 and flat 7. And Locrian has a flat 2, flat 3, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. Okay, so if you don't know that, you can't learn the other stuff. You have to memorize that first, because then most of the melodic minor scale, a lot of the modes are based off modes in the major scale, or the names are based on them. So, so they are. So you need to know what the major scale ones. If I say Lydian Augmented, right there, that's the third mode of the melodic minor scale. Lydian in the major scale has a sharp 4. So when you say something is augmented, that means usually a sharp 5th. You could be talking about an augmented interval, but we're not talking about that. When you talk about augmented, you think of augmented chords, okay? Typically, augmented is synonymous with sharp 5, okay? If it's not related to an interval. I'm not answering any questions on recording engineering here, so don't ask any. If you do, Michelle will delete your comment. Anyway, so okay, so if you take these modes of the major scale, melodic minor scale, and harmonic minor scale, there are ways to remember these in relating them to the major scale. For example, if you take Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixed Lydian, Aeolian, Locrian, and then you go to melodic minor. You go melodic minor and Dorian flat 2 as a second mode. Well, the second mode of the major scale is Dorian also. So you at least have that to grab onto. The third mode of the melodic minor scale is Lydian Augmented. Okay, so that's a departure from the major scale. So that's something that you have to just put in your brain, that's the third mode. But the next two modes of the melodic minor are both Mixolydian, or you could call it, a lot of people say Lydian flat 7 for Mixolydian sharp 11. I call the fourth mode Mixolydian sharp 11 to differentiate it from the third mode, which is Lydian Augmented. You don't want to have two Lydian modes in a row. I think it's easier to remember. And I typically will say Mixolydian sharp 11 or sharp 4, and then Mixolydian flat 6 are the fourth and fifth modes. I call it Lydian dominant as well, but typically if you're going to refer to the mode, I mean, in my book, I call it Mixolydian sharp 11, but I will also refer to it as Lydian dominant or Lydian flat 7. You should be able to name these scales in multiple ways, because the theory is this, is if you know what notes are the key notes to the scale, or know the notes that are altered from a major scale, then you can construct these scales pretty instantly. Okay, so then you have the sixth mode is Locrian natural 2. The seventh mode is altered dominant or super Locrian, or the diminished whole tone. Okay, now I want to talk about something here, because I want to talk about when I'm composing a piece, how do you actually develop these sounds of these modes? If you're going to say write something for a piano or strings or for an orchestra. So if I take a mode like Aeolian, okay, now I'll take an easy one, Lydian. Okay, Lydian, it has a sharp 4 in it. If I take a C major scale, okay, and let me see if I can do this like this. How can I do this? I'm going to do it like this. Sorry about this. I've got a bunch of my stands right here. And I'm going to do this here. Boom. There we go. Okay. I'll go like this and there. Right here. So. Okay. All right. So if I take the C major scale and I add a sharp 4 to it, I have the Lydian scale, and keep the rest of it. Okay, that sharp 4 is really important to the scale. But the thing you want to keep in mind is, where are the half steps in the scale? I talked about this last night a bit. You always want to look at where the half steps are, because that gives you the sound of your modes, those half steps. You also want to look at the quality of mode. If a mode has a major quality or a minor quality. Okay, those are really the two main qualities. You can have dominant qualities as well. But typically, I will first say whether it has a major or minor quality to it. In the major scale, there are 3 modes that have a major quality. There is Ionian, there's Lydian, and there's Mixolydian. So the rest of the scales would have a minor quality. You have Phrygian, you have Aeolian, and you have Locrian and Dorian. But typically Locrian, because it has a flat fifth, that falls into a little different category, but I typically will call that a minor mode because it has a flat third. So basically any mode that has a major third in it is going to fall into the major category, and any mode that has a minor third in it can fall into the minor category. That's a much easier way to remember it. So if I take the Lydian scale, if I take C Lydian and I say, okay, well, in order to define it as a major and minor chord, you have to have the major third. Okay, so if I take and I play a voicing like this, can you guys hear that okay? You can hear that, right? So I have C, G, E. That's a C major chord. If I add one note to this, the F sharp, that gives me a C Lydian sound. That's all I need. But I can really go play a chord like this. That could be a C Lydian sound. This could be a C Lydian sound. I could have a C Lydian sound like this, but I don't have an F sharp in it. I could go like this too. So what I'm doing is I'm looking for things. I'm looking for the half steps in the scale, and I'm trying to come up with sounds that will use those to describe the chord, okay? Now, anytime that you have a half step, you can invert intervals, okay? Any half step can become a major seventh, and it can become a minor ninth. So you can take the same 3-note chord. If I take C, F sharp, G, which I call a Lydian Triad, 1 sharp, 4, 5, I can take the F sharp and G in that chord, and I can make it either have a half step, I can have a major seventh, like that, or I can have a minor 9, like that. Okay, it can be in any order too. So because of that, it can really open up the type of voicings that you have. So I can play a voicing like this. I can play a voicing like this. Lydian, Lydian. That's really nice. Okay, if I take a mode like Aeolian, you get different notes in it that have, you look for different half steps. So anytime you have a minor mode, you're going to have a half step typically. The minor modes that don't have the flat 2, you're either going to have the half step here between, let's say I'm taking C Dorian, between the 2nd and 3rd, and then the 6th and the flat 7, you have a half step. So those are areas to exploit for Dorian. If I have Aeolian, which I was talking about, I have between the 2nd and 3rd and between the 5th and 6th. Let's say I do an F, okay? So that is F Aeolian. So I could play a voicing like that. I could play a voicing like this. Okay? I could play a sound like that. This is really beautiful sounds there. I can play this voicing. Whoops. Okay, so if you memorize all the notes in all these modes, in the modes of the major scale, if you know that Lydian has a sharp 4, Mixolydian has a flat 7, Aeolian has a flat 3rd, the flat 6 and flat 7, then you can start moving on to the melodic minor modes. and it makes it easier to learn then. The harmonic minor modes are a lot more difficult because the augmented second in there. Once again, though, you can go in there. If I say Lydian sharp 9, that is a mode of the harmonic minor scale. Well, what is that? If you're in C, and you know C Lydian, here's C Lydian, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, sharp 9. What's the sharp 9 going to be? Well, the D is the 9th or the 2nd, so I just raise that a half step. Okay, so 1, sharp 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, sharp 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, right? 1, sharp 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So those are that augmented second in the harmonic minor scale is what really gives it its quality. But once again, in that scale, the areas I'm going to look to exploit are between the sharp 2 and 3, and then between the sharp 4 and 5. Okay, so you've got your 1, sharp 2, 3 there, and then so I can take the sharp 2 and the 3. You get some sounds that you probably are going to think are ugly. I think they're beautiful, though. Okay. This is how I'm coming up with these voicings for these particular, or how I come up with lines for these things. And what you really should do is get a notebook, and I'll show you what I do. So I have a notebook here. Where is my notebook? I have a notebook here. I'll show you my notebook. So I was talking about this last night. I typically keep a notebook like this. We're going to get to that board and the other board here in a second. So I have a notebook that I keep for practicing. Okay, let me show you. I wrote out this. This is a G sharp Phrygian. These are a series. A sharp 9 and sharp 2 are the same thing. We just call it sharp 9, but they're the same. So I wrote out a series of Phrygian voicings here. Okay, I wrote out a series of voicings that I like the sound of, and it's part of my journal here. So right there. So I was like, okay, I'm voice leading these and finding things that sound good to my ear. All these things are subjective, but you have to remember them somehow. So you need to keep a diary or whatever you want to call it. You need to have a notebook to hold these ideas in, because you can't possibly remember all this stuff unless you're woodshedding it all the time, okay? So that's what I would suggest doing. So when I'm going to write a piece that, like I did in my video yesterday, hey Bruce, I am going through my notebooks and saying, okay, do I have anything that I can use here? I go through, I have sketches in the computer in particular pieces that I will call, modal studies or things like that. Or I will improvise. And many of the things that I do in my videos are improvisations. Now, some of the particular modes that I were using, some of the particular little segments that I did in the piece, some of them were written out and played with separate notes. For example, let's see here. If I played the, let's see here, home videos, hold on. Here we go. If I played, let's see, I'll tell you that. So Aeolian was one of the ones where I had the parts written out. Here's the Aeolian one, so you can hear it. Right here. So that particular segment was something that was from my notebook, okay? But then when I get to, some people liked my Lydian, or what was it, Mix Flat 6, I think it was. Let me find it here. This one, yeah. This particular one, Mix Lydian Flat 6, was an improvisation here. So here it is. Right here. Now you notice that I ended with what kind of a chord? I did not end with a major chord, even though Mix Lydian Flat 6 is a major mode. So, how you like that? Anyways, so in order to do this, in order to have fluidity with these things, you really need to have this stuff memorized. You have to know what the scale degrees are between the modes. Okay, I want to talk about something that I've gotten a lot of questions about, which are these mirror modal pairs. I want to talk a little bit about this. This is from a video from a couple weeks ago. Okay, I want to make sure you guys can see this here. I'm kind of low tech here because of, can you guys see this okay? It's going the correct way, isn't it? Here, let me turn this a little bit. There we go. That's good. Okay. All right, so when we're talking about these mirror modal pairs, let me get my marker and my eraser here. If I take a C, hold on, let's see if I get a little bit more light over here. There we go. You guys see that better? Okay, if I take a C major scale, C Ionian scale, we have the pattern whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay, that is a C major scale. If I do that exact same pattern but descend from C, we get a mirror image of it, or you get the Phrygian scale. So, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. That gives me a C Phrygian scale. So, Ionian and Phrygian are mirror pairs. They mirror each other. The interval combination of Ionian ascending and Phrygian descending are the same. So here are our mirror pairs down here. Lydian and Locrian, okay, that's easy to remember, L and L. Ionian and Phrygian are mirror images of each other. Mixed Lydian Aeolian and Dorian, that's a palindrome, okay? That means that they read the same forward and backwards, okay? So this is moving from dark to light, okay? From light to dark. I say dark going this way. So this is the brightest mode is Lydian. Locrian is the darkest mode, so it's moving from dark to light. Maybe I should have written that differently. I think I should write that the opposite. This should be light to dark. I think it makes more sense. You're dark here, and then you're going to the light there. Okay? Now, that's a pretty, I think a pretty easy concept. If you reverse those two, then they're exactly the same. For example, Ionian and Phrygian Ionian, it doesn't matter. Well, the Melodic Minor scale has its own mirror pairs. Why do I keep saying pals? It's so funny. Okay, now here they are. This is a multi-room lesson here. Hold on, I'm going to plug in I got to plug in my phone here so that so it doesn't die. It takes a lot of battery power to do these live streams here. This is really fascinating, I think, because I've never seen this in a book before, honestly. I've never seen the melodic minor scales like this in a book. Let me straighten it here. There we go. My board's a little bit crooked. Okay. Works the same way. I should have written it like this, though. We'll reverse these here. Dark and light. Light. This is from light moving to dark. This is from dark moving to light. Okay? Now, Lydian Augmented, just like Lydian, is the brightest mode. Okay? Has a sharp 4 and sharp 5. Its mirror image or minor or modal pair is superlocrian or altered dominant. Okay? So it's a direct... Lydian Augmented ascending is the same interval combination as altered dominant descending. Mixed sharp 11, Locrian natural 2 are pairs. Melodic minor Dorian flat 2 are pairs. And mixed flat 6 is a palindrome, just like Dorian. Okay? It's kind of fascinating. I put the numbers of these scales here. So Lydian Augmented is the 3rd mode of melodic minor, and Superlocrian is the 7th mode. 4th mode, 6th mode, 1st mode, 2nd mode, 5th mode, 5th mode. Okay? It is it's really interesting. I want to put the other ones down here. I'm going to do the major scale ones just so you can see them right next to each other. So we go here. We got Lydian, and we have Locrian. Then we have Ionian, and we have Phrygian. And I'm trusting you not to be trolls while I'm doing this. We have Mixolydian and Aeolian. And then we have Dorian. Okay? So these move, once again, from light, this being the brightest mode, light to dark. This is from dark, dark to light. Okay? Well, what do you notice about these things? You notice anything? Well, you got Lydian and Lydian Augmented, right? You have Locrian and Superlocrian. Okay? They're the same. So you have except here you have the 4th mode and the 7th mode, right? Here you have the 1st mode and the 3rd mode. Here you have the 5th mode and the 6th mode. Here you have the 2nd mode and the 2nd mode. Okay? So this is really fascinating. They don't line up in the same way, but they do line up in the fact that they both have palindromes in them, which of course you would expect because they have, with any particular note sequence, you're going to have a particular mode that's going to be a mirror image of it. But these are kind of how negative harmony can be derived out of this, because you can derive negative harmony out of other scales similar to this using these mirror images of the scales. You have the same thing with harmonic minor. We're not going to talk about that today because I don't want to confuse you with too many things. Now, let's take a look a little bit at these melodic minor modes because I think that they confuse people. You checking this out? Look at this. Got another board here. Look at that. Okay, melodic minor. Okay, these are, once again, what do you do to major scale to get a melodic minor scale? You just flat the 3rd. So in C major, you have 1 through 7. C melodic minor would be C, D, E flat, right? F, G, A, B. Okay? If I were to make a C Dorian flat 2, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. Okay? You just follow the formula. C Lydian Augmented, C, D, E, sharp 4, so F sharp, G sharp, A, B. Okay? This is exactly how these modes work. I have about 20 whiteboards here. It's pretty hilarious. I have one right over here too, and I was thinking, man, I need to fill up this whiteboard too. I have small whiteboard. My house is full of whiteboards. I got whiteboards in the kitchen, everything, right? So, mixed Lydian flat 6, once again, you could call this, you know, some people call it Lydian flat 7. Okay, I don't like to call it Lydian flat 7. Actually, that's not true. I do call it Lydian flat 7 a lot, or Lydian dominant. Doesn't matter. Either way, you're going to have either 2 Lydians or you're going to have 2 mixed Lydians. The point is, whether you call it Lydian or mixed Lydian, both of them have major thirds in them. So this is a point that I wanted to make, that I don't think that Rick Beato loves Apple. That's funny. I do. I mean, I'm actually using an iPhone for this. I know. It's bad. Okay. So if you look down the 3 column, you basically will tell the quality of the chord. If it's got a minor third, it's some type of a minor chord, meaning if it has a flat third. So where are your minor modes in this? Your minor sounds. Boom, right there, right there, right there, right here. Okay? Now, there's a little bit of a... oh yeah, you guys can always donate. Hold on. Block. Look at that. Yeah! So there's a little tricky thing here is actually finding the major modes too, because if you have a natural 3, it usually implies a major mode, with one exception down here, superlocrian or altered dominant, because of this. This is an important note, the flat 4. We actually call it the third. These are incredibly useful for improvisation. They're useful for everything. They're useful for writing. I'm showing you can write pieces using all these things. Superlocrian has a flat 4. If I'm in the key of C superlocrian or C altered dominant, I have C, D flat, E flat, F flat. Well, what is F flat? F flat is an E, right? F flat, G flat, A flat, B flat is a C superlocrian. Okay? The Beato, no, this isn't way beyond. The Beato book starts out right at the beginning. So if you get the Beato book, it starts with intervals and how to name them. And then it goes on to basic modes. And you use it for reference so that you don't have to take notes during this. You just buy the book and then you got it. You just go to that page and you look at it. Locrian natural 2, Aeolian flat 5. You know why I call it Locrian natural 2? It's because that's what people have been calling it for the last 35 years or so. Anyways, so this is the one instance here where this is really still a major or a dominant sound. Now let me talk about dominant sounds. Typically when you refer to a dominant type chord, you're referring to a chord that has a natural third or a major third and a flat 7. Okay, those are typically dominant sounding modes. Well, let's see if this is the case. Well, which ones have a major third and a flat 7? Right here, Lydian flat 7 or mixed sharp 11. Right? Boom, boom. That is a scale that works on dominant chords. Okay. Then you look at mixed flat 6. Here we go. Same thing. Boom, boom. And major third flat 7, superlocrian, okay? Because the flat 4. Those are your dominant sounds that are in the melodic minor scale. You have the 7th mode, you have the 5th mode, and you have the 4th mode. So there are 3 dominant sounds. And what are your major sounds that are in there? Well, your major sounds are going to have a major third and a major 7th. So the only scale in here that has the only harmonization or mode of the melodic minor scale that works with a major chord is the Lydian Augmented mode. Okay, I call it Lydian Augmented scale. You call it Lydian Augmented mode. It's the same thing. If you did this exact same thing, let's see if I can do this here without knocking this board over because it's kind of a flimsy stand. I hope there's no trolls while I'm doing this again. I hate trolls. They get banned. Okay. Okay, so we good here? So major modes, or major scale. So we got Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian. Sorry to abbreviate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. 1, 2, 3, sharp 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7. And 1, flat 2, flat 3, 4, flat 5, flat 6, flat 7. There's your modes of your major scale, okay? So, which ones are the modes that work on dominant chords? Let's actually start with that. Well, what did we just talk about? If it has a major third and a flat 7, it sounds like a dominant, right? And it is a dominant mode. So here's one right here. Boom, boom, Mixolydian. What mode is that? It's the 5th mode. What chord is on the 5th? It's the dominant chord, right? So when you're talking about music theory, that's what you're talking about. Now, if you go down here and look for anything else with a major third, that says a major third but has a major 7th, which is Lydian. Same with Ionian, major third, major 7th. Those are your major sounds of the modes of the major scale. Okay, so these have the major third and the major 7th, right? Just like Lydian Augmented had. Boom, boom. All the rest have minor thirds and flat 7s. Boom, 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 boom. With the exception of Phrygian and Locrian, which have a flat 2. So they kind of have their own category. So you have Dorian and Aeolian, and then you have Phrygian and Locrian. Okay? Now, if we go back over here, right? Hold on, let me bring my stand here. If we go back over here and look, when you start here, right? You guys all with me here? What do you notice about these? Well, this is your one with flat 2s, flat 2. Then you go to the ones that don't have the flat 2, the other minor scales. Then you start here. This one has your major third, major 7th, major third, major 7. Then you have the major third, flat 7. Okay? Let's go up here and look at this. You have your one major mode, right? That's the first one because it's got the major third, major 7. Then you're immediately into your dominant sound here. Okay? So melodic minor is tricky because you have many, I mean, some people would call this Lydian flat 7. So, you know, because of the naming, look at energy dedication. Has he ever paused to drink something? You know, I actually am going to drink something. Because of the naming, because people use different names in these scales, you really need to, know all these different names. That's kind of that's the one thing about this that that I think confuses people, because there's so many different. Is there a whiteboard in the kitchen? There is actually a whiteboard in the kitchen. You would not believe it, because we learn all the time here. So you have to know all these different names. You have to know if somebody refers to something as Lydian dominant, you have to know that it's the 4th mode of melodic minor. If they refer to mixed sharp 11, you got to know it's the 4th mode. If they say mixed sharp 4, you got to know it's the same thing. Don't get hung up on nomenclature. It's not important. What's important is that you recognize what all these different things are. This is really the key to this. And ultimately, none of this theory makes a difference if you don't have taste. Because ultimately, taste is what makes you a good writer, good composer, anything is having good taste. And that's something that a lot of people say you can't be taught taste. I totally disagree with that. I'm gonna drink. Taste is something you can absolutely be taught. Teach you taste, Aaron. And Paul, don't be seduced by the numbers. I totally agree with that. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the theory. It's about taste. I always would tell people that would hire me as a producer, you're not hiring me for my abilities to get sounds, although that's important too. You're hiring me for my taste. Does this melody sound good or not? Is this lyric good? Ultimately, that's all that matters, is if you can tell the difference between these things. Any great producer has great taste, okay? Do you know what a good melody sounds like or not? So, but can you learn taste? Yes. Because taste, I think, is really about... taste develops throughout your life. When you, the more you learn, the more your taste changes, the more your taste evolved. And I think that if you were to look, somebody just said Radiohead, Ryan says Radiohead has amazing taste. If you take a song like Creep and then compare it to Everything in Its Right Place, there's nothing similar about those two songs, really, except Tom York singing. But even his singing doesn't sound the same in them. But Everything in Its Right Place is a much more sophisticated song. It's much more sophisticated harmonically. Even though it's got a very static melody. I mean, to me, probably one of their greatest melodies is an Airbag. Come on, what is really great taste? That's subjective. Yeah, it is subjective. Some people have really bad taste and they don't realize it. I don't think taste is really necessarily subjective. I think that people understand balance in melody. And they do it intuitively. I really believe that. People will say, "Oh, I hate that song," or "That song is catchy," or "It's easy to sell out and write a hit song." Well, that's a lie. It's not. It's not easy to write a song that millions of people connect with. It's not easy at all. If it was easy, people would do it all the time, right? Now, melodies that have balance or pieces that have balance are really, those are things that I think withstand the test of time. And there is a reason. There were hundreds and hundreds of composers that are around during the classical era. But we pretty much talk about Mozart and Haydn. Those are the two. There were a lot of composers around in the Romantic era. We talk about a few more because their music got out there more and it's fresher. We talk about Beethoven and Brahms and Mendelssohn and Schubert and Schumann. But there are many composers that we don't talk about. If we go back to the Baroque era, we talk about Bach, we talk about Handel, we talk about Scarlatti. So there's other composers that were around then. Paganini is kind of bridges between a couple different eras. He was born in the 1700s and he lived to 1845, I believe. So time weeds out these Vivaldi. Okay, I didn't mean to leave out Vivaldi. Fernando Sor, no offense. Okay. Anyways, but time will weed these things out, and the people that have taste and that write tasteful melodies, that write melodies that are balanced, melodies that really stick in your ear, are the people that get remembered. And I think that all human beings have a natural sense of balance. Balance typically in many people's eyes equates to beauty. When you think of a beautiful person's face, when people talk about it, what is beauty? Well, beauty is obviously in the eyes of the beholder, right? But they typically talk about faces that have balance to them, with the eye spacing, with the like things like that you have, things that are balanced in that way, that have symmetry. But obviously there are differences that occur, that as you grow older, most people will find other things attractive, okay? Just like as your taste developed, I liked the Ramones when I was in high school. I loved the Ramones. I loved Led Zeppelin. Well, I still love the Ramones and Led Zeppelin, but I like Schoenberg. But I didn't know Schoenberg when I was in high school. I had never heard of Schoenberg, okay? A lot of, people talk about acquired taste. Well, there's a reason that there's a term, and that taste is acquired. It's acquired through, being exposed to things. A lot of people are scared of insects, right? Because they look so alien. Why do you think they make aliens look like that in movies? Yet people that work with insects, that are, researchers, they are not afraid of them. And they don't find them necessarily ugly because they're used to seeing them. So people, the more familiar you get with certain things, the more accepting you are of them, and the more you look for beauty in them. And as you get further on into these pieces, when I do my next video where I talk about the modes, where I do my piece and I go through all the modes of the harmonic major scale, the double harmonic major scale, and then the tonic diminished, the dominant diminished, the augmented, the whole tone, I go through all those scales, you're going to hear some really dissonant sounds. Some of them you're going to like, some of them you're not going to like. When I did my darkest scale ever video, it has some really, kind of eerie sounds in it. I'll play you the piece from that, the double harmonic scale. Here's the piece. Now, there's a lot of choices in that scale, and in the video I go through 48 different triads, and I think it's 48 different triads and seventh chords that are in the scale. And that is because there are 3 consecutive half steps in the double harmonic major scale, because there's two augmented second intervals in it. There's a lot of possibilities for that, okay? Now, to a lot of people's ears, that's incredibly dissonant, that piece. But for some reason, it got 350,000 views on my channel. It's the third most watched video that I have. Yet it's one of the most dissonant pieces that I've written for any of my videos, which is really weird to me, because I thought it was odd that this video would get so... Why would a video with this particular piece have so many views? That is really weird. I'm going to play it one more time. It's 43 seconds long, but I'm trying to... I went back and listened to it when it started getting all these views, and I'm thinking like, man, I have videos with really melodic, sounds in it and things like that. Some of the modes, whatever, my Lydian or Aeolian videos, things like that. But this particular, why this one? So, I don't know about that, you know? Maybe that it's, I'm reading these comments here. It does resolve. It resolves at the end. You hear that there's a C major chord right there. Can you hear that major chord in the left hand there? Listen. Listen. So you got little Lydian, right? You got that sharp 5 there. So right at the end, it cadences, but it cadences to this Lydian augmented sound here, or that E right at the end really is that resolution that you want to hear. If I left that note out, that to me was where the taste comes in. Is to if I left that note out, it would not have sounded complete. So, anyways, ultimately, my point about this is that what you do with these things is really, really important. Once you go down, wait, I'm going to answer some questions now. The Tooth Goose. Rick, once we go down the rabbit hole of polychords and modal playing, will we ever return? Of course you'll return. Of course you'll return. You can do whatever you'd like to do. I mean, ultimately, it's what I hope my place in all this is that I provide the food for thought. And just listen to the Ramones. That's not a bad idea either. I love the Ramones. I think that people, you know, I was talking about this on my second channel. By the way, once again, subscribe to my Rick Beato live channel, my other YouTube channel. I go live on there every night. I did a marathon. I did my longest live stream yesterday, which was 112 minutes. I tried to make it to 2 hours, but my voice was getting worn out by it. So, but we kind of get into some really extended conversations. I know a lot of you are on here. I know a lot of you here. We do this every night, which is really cool. All the stuff I'm talking about, you know, somebody just wrote about Alan Holdsworth. I saw something. Zabala. How about approach Alan Holdsworth style? Well, yeah, Alan had a book, Searching for the Uncommon Chord. Now, that was just, I don't know if he titled that or not, but that was kind of his thing. He searched for these sounds that you just didn't hear necessarily. And there's a lot of there's a lot of bitonality. I wouldn't say necessarily polytonality. There's a lot of bitonality, meaning triads over bass notes in Alan's music. A lot of it. And he looked for sounds that were really, that had really beautiful dissonances in them. And then he figured out what were the tools that he needed to solo over these. And if you want to get some more insight into that, check out the sounding offs on my channel with Steve Hunt, who played keyboards with him on many of the records, and with Gary Husband that I did interviews with. Can you make polychords gent? You can absolutely make polychords gent. Coltrane changes concept. It's in the Beato book. If you want to support me, I'm trying not to say I went back and I watched the first 10 minutes of my video last night to see how I was doing, and I've got to stop saying So I'm trying really hard not to. It's very difficult to train yourself. It's just like training yourself to play things, you know, and not make mistakes. If you want to support my channel, by the way, you can always do the, what do you call it here, where you donate right on here. Or, like I say, you can buy my book or buy my album that's on my website. That, I put in a new feature. That's actually not true. Aaron put in a new feature on my website where if you buy my record, you can pay what you'd like. It's $10 for my album, but you can actually add on money if you like it and you want to, you know, give me an extra $1, whatever you want to do, an extra $100, whatever you want to do. So it's pay what you like on that. I canceled my Patreon, Paul. Paul just asked, why no Patreon? I don't believe in Patreon. I canceled it. I don't like the platform. I don't like anything of what they do, and I don't like asking people for money for nothing. Personally, I don't. If people want to donate, they should just donate, and you shouldn't have to pay another company to get people to donate, essentially. You know, Patreon, not only is Patreon, do you pay Patreon for having your, you know, your stuff up there, but then they want you to follow other creators. And I don't really, you know, that's, if you're going to take out the middleman. I don't have my album on iTunes because I don't want to pay iTunes 30% of my, you know, for 30% of the work that I've put out there. I don't believe in that. And, well, my record is only on my website and you have to download a zip file. I don't care that you can't buy it on iTunes or Spotify. I don't want it on there. You know, it's a personal choice. You know, I just don't believe in it. I think that the cutting out the middleman is the wave of the future, and that's why I don't like you know, regulation of the internet or anything. I think it's really I think Ray, there's a Beato book discount right now. If you go to my website, you can buy it. So anyways, that's kind of how I feel about Patreon. Once again, it puts a middleman in there when there's no need to have a middleman. There's absolutely no need to, and I shouldn't say middleman, middle person. You should just be able to go to the people that you like, and that's what I like about YouTube. Frankly, it's very democratic. People, you know, can choose to follow your channel or not, and the fact that you can cut out the middleman by having people, you develop your own, you develop an audience, and you develop an audience by building trust with people. And the way to build trust with people is to be genuine and honest, and to, you know, help people, try to help people selflessly. I think ultimately that's the, you know, that is, I have a saying that I always used to say, there's no secrets. It used to bug me when I started producing, because I would talk to people, and in production, people would never want to tell you what they did. I remember going in, I saw this engineer, this mixer, and Charles asked, what style is my record? That song I just played is on my record. My intro song is on my record. It's modern classical music, but it's things that are, it's called modal colors, or it's called modal preludes and etudes. Anyway, so a lot of, I remember working with this one engineer one time that mixed a lot of famous records. And he didn't, I was there as the producer. He's mixing a track, and he had nothing labeled on the console. And the reason he had nothing labeled is that he didn't want me to know what he was doing. He wouldn't put his kick track on the first channel and then the snare top, snare bottom. I'm going to talk about John Scofield in another video. I'm not talking about John Scofield now. That's way, way off topic. I have a video about John Scofield, actually. So, anyways, he would put the things in weird spots that only he knew where they were. And he literally was worried that I'm going to steal his ideas. And it's absurd. If people are worried about your ideas being stolen, come up with new ideas, you know? There are no secrets. That's really, it's what you do with this stuff. Because anybody can find anything out, okay? To hold things back from people. Now, when I sell my courses and everything, I'm selling them because it takes a lot of work to go into these things, and I write things like these that are etudes that you actually need to have, and you need to print them out and do all this stuff. I can't give everything away for free because you actually have to get the resources, and you know I can't put a 500-page book up here, you know, for you to look through. You know, you have to actually buy the things and look through them in that way. And I'm not saying that. I give away the ideas, the concepts and everything, but certain things you have to actually do the work with. For example, when my ear training course comes out, the ear training part, there's the talks and the explanations of it, but the programming that goes into it where you actually have to do the work for yourself, you can't, that is something that you have to download on your computer and install you have to work within the website platform, and you have to actually do the training yourself. So this is a much more advanced kind of things. A lot of things need to be learned by actually looking at them and studying them in book form or away from a computer. It can be on a computer too, but I think that book form is extremely important because the act of actually writing things down helps solidify things in your memory. AK just said, when is my course coming out? When it's done. Oh boy, that's when I'm working on it. It's these things take a long time. It took me 10 months to write my book. Remember that. That's a lot, you know. It's really, it takes time. Somebody asked a really good question. Rick, why sharp 4, sharp 5 is considered Lydian, not 1, and not say 1, 3, 5 from G major? Wouldn't the sharp 4 be considered a suspended chord? That's actually an interesting thing. Yes, the Lydian Triad is really like a suspended triad, okay? People will say, you know, if you have a G sus4 resolved down to G major in some types of music. In some music, G sus4 just lives on its own, okay? G sus2 resolves up to the third, or, you know, resolves up. Same thing with G Lydian. It does act like a suspension in some music. But in other music, when you hear that, everybody know what that is? What is that right there? What's that from? Who knows what that's from? Come on, somebody knows that. 6 Feet Under. Marcelo, thank you. Thomas Newman. That is the first chord in 6 Feet Under. That is E flat Lydian. Okay? Now, that's the first chord. It doesn't resolve after that, right? It's a sound within itself. And people have been using it forever. You know, I mean, that's in many soundtracks and things like that. There's a Lydian Triad for you right there. There's your example. 1, sharp 4, 5. HK says he cheated, saw the video last night. I think I played that, that's what I played for my daughter Layla. I said, Layla, what is this chord? She goes, E flat Lydian. And so anyways, so these chords stand by themselves. They aren't necessarily suspensions, but they can function as that way. A suspension, you would call that a sus sharp 4, right? You could think of it as, you know, if you're in the key of C, you get that F Lydian chord, which could resolve down to F. It could not resolve down to F, right? But where it gets really interesting is where you take these chords, like these Lydian chords. I can take a C Lydian chord, right? C, F sharp, G, and put an E in the bass, and I get an E Aeolian sound, right? In the middle of this chord, so I have. You see this? E in the bass, and then just C, F sharp, G. But right there, that C Lydian chord could be other things too. I could, let me take a different Lydian chord. Let's say I take B flat Lydian. I'm gonna do B flat, E, F, but I'm putting it in inversion. But I'll put a G in the bass. And that becomes a G Dorian sound. Or I can do this and put a D in the bass. Listen. Listen to it. So these triads can really provide a lot of. You can do it with HK just said you can do it with spread triads as well. If I take, I can do a spread Lydian triad, right? We know about spread triads. So if I take this chord, B flat, E, F, a B flat Lydian triad, I take the middle note, move it up the octave. Beautiful sound. Then I put a G in the bass, or I can make it a Phrygian sound. I'll put A in the bass. My book does include the modes and how to use them. Of course it does, yes. I don't have 300 pages of nothing. Anyway, so, and these spread triads, this is not bitonality. Bitonality is well, I guess you could call, you know, I think of bitonality as things like this. If I do a progression like this, okay, I'll start out with, if I take A flat major and I put a G in it, here, it sounds like an inverted A flat major 7 chord with a 7th in the bass. If you have this chord, but I do it like this. But if I put the G down here, then the G functions as an independent root and it becomes a bitonal sound. Okay, so it sounds like a G Phrygian sound there. Okay, and if I have chords like this, some of these are going to be bitonal chords. Let's say I go, and then I go to here. But then I might go to here. That would be more of a bitonal chord. I've got a G major over E flat, and then F7 sus4 over D, and then E major 7 sus4 over C sharp, then D flat major over C, that's a bitonal Phrygian chord, then E flat major over B, E major over G, these are all bitonal chords, F sharp major over F, G major over E flat, F sus4 over D, F sharp major over C. Those are bitonal chords there, as opposed to polychords. Bitonal chords and polychords are different. Polychords are two different chords. For example, the Rite of Spring uses E major and E flat 7. I'd have to have a different, a shorter sound, but that's the chord in the Rite of Spring. It uses F flat major and then E flat dominant over G in first inversion, E flat 7. So that is the chord. Or Petrushka uses Stravinsky, yes. Petrushka uses this chord, C major over F sharp major. Those are polychords, so there's a difference. A bitonal chord is typically or bitonal chord would be like a triad over bass note. This is pretty much how most people would identify these. If you want to know about soloing over them, you should buy my new course, Advanced Harmonic Concepts, because it's really about bitonalism. It's about triads over bass notes, certain types of seventh chords over bass notes. It's really about how to use this more sophisticated vocabulary for improvising and composing. For people that solo over Alan Holdsworth tunes or something like that, but understanding what kind of chord scales go over them. Bitonal, it typically just refers to a triads over bass notes. And they're triads over bass notes where one of the notes is not doubled. If I have D over F sharp, well, it's still D major, okay? The third is in the bass. So you're only dealing with a 3-note chord, but it's really more for things like A flat major over D or D flat major over C, things like that. Those are so somebody asked if I've heard of Jacob Collier. Of course I've heard of Jacob Collier. Do I ever use guitar synths? I used to use guitar synths years and years ago. When they first dropped the JC bomb. When they first came out, I used them. I really thought it was cool because I thought it was cool because it was the first time. And they were really rudimentary. Ryan, thank you, exactly, thank you. And I'm not going to equate the two of them though, Ryan. Okay, I'm not going to equate Jacob and John Coltrane. Although somebody said that John Coltrane had dentures the other night, and we're trying to get any more information on that we can. There's a rumor that John Coltrane had dentures. And that is, I've never heard that before. Somebody on I don't remember who it was, on my Rick Beato live channel the other night said this. And then we couldn't believe it. We were talking about this. I've never seen Coltrane. I don't know about Coltrane smiling. I don't know if Coltrane smiled, but people used to have have I heard the distortion on Cash Me Outside? Yes, I like the distorted vocal on Cash Me Outside. I admit it. I admit to these things, even if it's embarrassing. Anyway, so that is really that's actually a funny thing there, the Coltrane thing. I mean, they used to remove people's teeth all the time. If you had any type of tooth infection, the first thing they do is take your teeth out. It was really, when I was a kid, that stuff was going on still. Like people, you had a cavity? Just pull your tooth out. Anyways, so it's actually not funny. You know what my mom always said? She was obsessed. She said, make sure you keep all of your teeth. And I'll tell you a sad story that my mom's older brother, when he was 17, died of an abscessed tooth in 1941, 3 months before penicillin was invented or came on the market. My mom was 16. She lost her older brother to a tooth infection, and it was, you know, her mom was pregnant with my Aunt Penny, who's still with us at the time, and that's pretty profound. Things like that people used to die of things like that. So that's why Coltrane was born in the 1920s. This is why, you know, when he was born, people used to take your teeth out if you had some type of cavity, you know. So wait, is somebody asking me about 432? I don't talk about 432. But yeah, my mom said, make sure you keep all of your teeth. So, you know, you got to floss every day and all that, right? Anyways, so this is, I'll take other questions here. There's a lot of concepts to absorb today, but the, you know, I think a big takeaway here, can I talk about Pink Floyd in the 70s? I've talked about Pink Floyd. I'm a big Pink Floyd fan. I have a Pink Floyd, there is no such thing as the Undertones series. It's a made up thing. It's not a real thing. How come nobody mentions A Love Supreme? I just mentioned it right then. Let's see. How can that be added during solos? I'm not sure what that means here. Creating melodies from codes. You can do that. Let's see here. Can Dolo be transitioned more in Ionian Lydian mode? Yeah, so it's really, I like Tool. I like A Perfect Circle also, but I like Tool. But I think I like A Perfect Circle better. I was talking about that on my other channel too, about the, what is it, 13th Step, that record I really like a lot. I like, what is it, The Noose, what are the tunes on there? I really like that record. There's a couple songs. Weak and Powerless. That's one of my favorite Maynard songs, or Tool songs. Weak and Powerless, amazing song. Oh, so good. And the kick drum goes. It's an Andy Wallace mix, and it's a killer mix. The low end is huge on it. Fred Frith, awesome. Love Fred Frith. Who was I talking to that is a student of Fred Frith's? Somebody that recently. And I've known about Fred Frith for years and years. I didn't realize that Fred Frith is only a few years older than me still. He's in his 50s. John Frusciante. What about John Frusciante? He's excellent. He's a great guitar player, and his guitar sound on Blood Sugar Sex Magic is one of my favorite guitar sounds ever. Undertones, let me talk about undertones a little bit, or in relation to subharmonics. Subharmonics are added tones below your fundamental tone that are used. I use them a lot in production to expand what I call extending the low end of your mix, and there's ways that you can generate subharmonics. There used to be things like the Big Bottom Pro that Aphex made, or Peavey made a really good subharmonic synthesizer, as did DBX, made one back in the 70s. The DBX, what was it, 120, I think? But they're really, you know, can be really helpful used properly if you don't get some. You know, if you have really accurate low end with a subwoofer, you got to be very careful using subharmonic synthesizers, though. So, low air, Robert, that's a great term that I am going to borrow from you. Low air. Wow, did you just make that up? Because that is a great term. Which modern guitar players do I like? Did you, Frederick? You like that, right? Low air. I love that. Low air is a Waves plugin. Oh, man. That's a great tune. Is Fred Frith 68? Okay, I thought Fred Frith was in his late 50s or so, or early 60s. Okay. Low air. That's a great term. If you want to add some low air, then you use a subharmonic synthesizer. Anything on Sufjan Stevens? One of my good friends works with him, and one of my really good friends works with him. I love Snarky Puppy. I interviewed Mark Lettieri from Snarky Puppy on my channel last year. It's on. If you go to my channel, you can go through my sounding off videos, and you'll see Mark, who's a super great guy and a really talented player. And I love that Snarky Puppy is keeping jazz alive. Favorite Miles Davis song? That's a great question. I like ESP a lot. Wait, did Wayne write that or Miles? I like, I have to think about that. There's a lot of Miles tunes I like. Most overused mode in film music, probably Lydian, yes. Man, these are going so fast here. Could I make a video on Mutt Lange techniques? I could. I have a lot of multi-tracks, Mutt Lange multi-tracks, but I'm not sure I could use them. But that would be really instructive. How did I get the bass sound on Jump Little Children record I did? Yeah, there we go. That's a great record. I produced a band called Jump Little Children back in 2004. It's a record I really love. The bass sound is an upright bass. And it has, I remember this specifically. I recorded the DI through a 610, a Universal Audio 610 mic pre with a 1176 compressor. And then I mic'd it with a mic called The Tube by AKG. And then I used distortion. I used distortion on the a little bit of distortion on the bass sound to make it really have a lot more mids and everything. And I love the bass sound of that. Remind me of Guthrie. Okay, yes, I need to write Guthrie. I will do that after this. Tosin Obasi, I know Tosin. I know that I need to call the guys, because that was the thing we were talking about doing live, actually doing a live sounding off with Tosin. Let's see. Yeah, it's not musically wondering if there's a way to incorporate. Hold on, I'm reading your question, Daniel. To incorporate a level of darkness in a hoppy, more upbeat melody. My deeper music theory understanding is mediocre. I'm not sure what you're asking me on that. I'll have to go back and read that again. Put that in the comments and I'll see. I'm saying, thank you for reminding me, Ian. It's annoying. I almost said it there. I just kept myself. Let's see here. Sounding off with Yngwie. You know, I watched a video of Yngwie on YouTube of him sitting around playing Swedish folk songs with a bunch of his friends. He was sitting at a picnic table out in this beautiful green, summertime setting, and people were asking him songs. They were obviously his friends, and they were filming it, and he was playing all these folk songs, and it was great. I love that video. It was so un-Yngwie from everything that you see or hear. And he's hanging out with his friends, and it's very, very engaging. It looks really cool. Anything about ear training? You are definitely coming in late on that ASMR. Yeah, my ear training course will be out in when it's done. The folk song. Okay, so that's actually a folk song. Are you Swedish? Do you know that song? Because that was really cool. Thank you for that donation, Bagala. I couldn't read the rest of it there. In the near future, Frederick, in the near future, I'd say probably a couple months. Pat Martino guitar style playing. When it's done, Pat Martino guitar style playing. Yes. Pat has a concept called the 12-point star, I think it's called. Anybody ever heard of that? Did it again. Is there some truth in what you did with Dylan? If we raised our kids all the same way, we would have the same result. If so, then we find ear training for drawing visual. Then we find the ear training for drawing visual memory. I did sorry. So, I believe, and if you go back and listen to the Radiolab interview with Diana Deutsch, please make a note of this. Diana Deutsch on Radiolab. Listen to that show because it's incredibly insightful. She's probably the most foremost researcher on perfect pitch for the last 40 years or so. And she's in her, I want to say she's 80 years old, and she has Diana Deutsch right there. She has perfect pitch too, correct. And she's been researching it. And she says exactly what my whole theory on, she says it verbatim. It came out last year, someone sent it to me, but the concept that I used with my kids and my app called Neural that I don't forget to mention it, but I have an app called Neural. This is an ear training app for babies. I don't want to be on here pushing my ear training app, but I do mention it. It's always in the description here. So that are the 600 different tunes that I used with Dylan and my girls for ear training, and I never mentioned a note to them. So all they did was listen to Aiden's music mainly, and specific music that I curated. That's how do you donate on a live chat? I'm not sure. Can someone help out and say how do you develop a good ear in your 20s? Just by practicing. Relative pitch is what my ear training course is about. Is relative pitch. Obviously, you can't develop perfect pitch as an adult, and you don't need perfect pitch. You have to have great relative pitch. Daniel Levitin, I've absolutely heard of, and I've emailed with Daniel in the past. So there's a PC, there's a $sign. Relative pitch can be developed no matter what. Of course it can. Absolutely. It can be developed to such a degree that it's essentially like perfect pitch. But it's faster than perfect pitch. People with perfect pitch, if you have perfect pitch and you play a melody, in order to remember the melody, you have to sing it back. In order to sing it back, yeah, donating is blocked for some countries. That's true. It's called Super Chat. That's what it is. Anyway, so if you're gonna use your or figure out a melody, people with perfect pitch, you're not gonna say, oh, that's C, F sharp, G, E. You're gonna think of the intervals, and you're going to use relative pitch because that's way, way faster. Thank you, Bruno, for that. That is great. Watch that or listen to that Radiolab interview with her because it's absolutely fascinating. It describes the whole concept of she talks about a research study that they did at the Eastman School of Music a few years ago. What they found is they had a group of Asian pianists, most of which were Chinese, that grew up or were born speaking tonal languages, that had 74% of the Asian pianists had perfect pitch, whereas only 14% of the American pianists had perfect pitch that were at Eastman. Eastman's one of the best music schools in the world. So you're going to find in the piano department, you're going to find a higher incidence of people with perfect pitch at a school like Juilliard or Curtis or Eastman than you are at, places that are not as difficult to get into. But to have it where they were 9 times more likely to have perfect pitch, people that are tonal language speakers, it could be Vietnamese or Mandarin or Cantonese or, there's a bunch of tonal languages. But people that that grow up, that are born babies, and she talks about the first 6 months of life, that tones are important to the language, and she explains this about how the word ma, depending on whether it's a rising tone, a falling tone, a straight tone, or a falling rising tone, have a different meaning. That's one word, depending on what the pitch is. So when the pitch is important to the word and to the meaning, then pitch takes on a much more important role in understanding and developing language. Okay, so if, and they use this term in there that's, she talks about distributions, okay? This is kind of my theory on playing this high information music for babies, is that once you create this, you have a higher distribution of pitched sounds by using this really harmonically and melodically rich music for babies, playing it to them hours and hours a day and interacting with them, it becomes where you get a greater distribution of the so-called pitched notes, the agreed upon 12 pitches that we use in Western music. I know it's not agreed upon by everybody on here. Some people talk about 415 and 432, but I'm talking about A440. So the ability to identify these pitches are, these things become part of your long-term memory. So as you create a greater distribution of your, I call it, filling up pitch buckets, then the babies, once they get filled up to a certain level, the incidence of perfect pitch will go up. And when you have a tonal language and the babies are getting used to hearing tones all the time, and it's important for their development of language, which ultimately is important for their survival, then those tones are going to take on more importance, and the ability to hear those tones become more important. And then you start getting people that have a higher incidence of perfect pitch. It's not rocket science, but it can help you with rocket science. And I talked about taste as objective, subjective symmetry can be considered the most important thing when it comes down to musical choices. What about the golden ratio then? I don't want to talk about the golden ratio because I want to do a video on it. So I don't want to, that's actually one of my new videos that I'm going to do probably this week. Please talk about my experience recording Between the Dim and the Dark. I wish I could play some of it. I got dinged for copyright thing for that record. I recorded the record in 2000, the end of 2003, beginning of 2004. They were a band that they were on Atlantic Records, and they had gotten dropped from their deal, and a good friend of mine came to me and said, you should really produce the Jump Little Children record. Are you familiar with it? And I said, I knew the song that they'd had out called, why am I forgetting this now? They had a big song that was on the radio that, it was on the record before. Cathedrals, that's what it's called, Cathedrals. Great song. So they had heard a record I did by this kid named Owen Beverly, and they loved the record, and they approached me about doing it. That's when I called my friend Michael, and I said, what do you know about Jump Little Children? He says, oh, you should definitely do their record. They're a phenomenal band. So the singer Jay sent me the demos of the record. I listened to it, and I thought I was blown away. They were really incredible songs, really great songs. and we started the record. Here's an interesting story that I've never told. So on the first day of making their record, we were recording this place, Tree Sound, here in Atlanta. We loaded into the B room, which is a huge thing called the Cave. And the Cave is about 75 feet long, and I used to record the drums on the stage. I had a big stage and had a probably 40-foot ceiling. But there was no window where the control room was. So I had to walk back, and you had to wind around this whole area, and it was a minute walk from the control room out to the live room. So we're setting up, and I'm getting ready to start getting drum sounds, and I'm talking. Hey guys, what's up? Can you hit the drums? Evan, can you hit the drum? Nothing. And I think, what is going on here? Where are these guys? So a couple minutes later, the guys come walking back in the control room, and I said, where were you guys? They said Elton John just walked in to our session. I said, what? What are you talking about? He's recording in the A studio, and his assistant walked in first and said, are you guys Jump Little Children? And they said, yes. And then 1 minute later, Elton came walking in and said, I'm a huge fan of your band. I love Cathedrals. Are you guys working on a new record? And they said, yes, we're just about to start recording the first note. So they said that Elton told us to come in to his session when we're done with ours that night. So at 8 o'clock that night, after we finished recording, we called over to the A studio, and they said, yeah, come on in. And we went in, and it was Elton's band from the 70s. All the original guys, Nigel, the drummer, and Bernie Taupin was there, who wrote all the songs, wrote the lyrics for all the songs for Elton. He was there with Elton. Elton introduces us to Bernie, and Elton is the nicest guy in the world. This was 2004. Absolutely the nicest guy in the world. And double lip embouchure. I assume you're talking about John Coltrane. He knew every band that was on the radio. He would go out every Tuesday, and I saw him out at record stores. He would buy, no lie, 100 CDs in a week. Take them home and listen to them. He was so engaged in the music. He knew every metal band that was out. He knew every rock band. He could talk about any kind of music. Hello, Back to Iraq. That's awesome. He really was incredibly knowledgeable about contemporary music and a really, really hip guy. So they had recorded a song that day, and we talked for about 45 minutes. He said, do you want to hear a song we recorded? He said, yes. He said, sit down. So I sit down, and I'm not really, honestly, I'm not starstruck by most people. But if it was Paul McCartney or Jimmy Page or Elton John, somebody like that, you're kind of thinking in your mind, thinking, this is Elton John. I love Elton John's music. He's got some amazing songs. So I'm sitting there at the console at this SSL, and Elton John's sitting right here, and I kept thinking, that's Elton John right there. And I was thinking, man, Elton John, he was one of John Lennon's close friends. He's a legend. That's, it's as big as you can get. Bernie Taupin, come on. You guys are, that's pretty much as big as you can get. And he was there we worked on the record for a couple weeks, and Elton was there for a month. And this is what was really interesting. The night before that, he had been in LA getting an award, a Grammy or a Lifetime Achievement Award or something. He flew back from LA, and he was at the studio at 10 a.m. And every day for those 2 weeks that we were there, I mean, Elton worked on the record for a month. I worked at the studio all the time. Every day, Elton was there at 10 a.m., right on time, and they were ready to go, all business. And he told us, it was fascinating. He goes, back in the 70s, we would record 2 records a year. We would write the record in 6 days and record it, and then go out and tour for 6 months. Come back in, write the next record in 6 days, record it, and go out and tour again. And that's what you did in the 70s. He also said that he showed us what his system was. So Bernie would write the lyrics. He would hand Elton the lyrics. Elton would go out, and they would run a DAT. This is obviously in 2004. So Elton would look at the lyrics on the piano and improvise and sing melodies that came to his head with the lyrics, and that was it. All improv. All his songs would be improvised to Bernie's lyrics. He always had the lyrics first, and that is extremely rare to have lyrics first. As a matter of fact, the only song I know that the Beatles wrote that had the lyrics first that I've ever read was Across the Universe, which is an incredibly good lyric, John Lennon lyric. That particular song. But I don't know of any other Beatles song that was done that way. Every other Beatles song that I know of, they had the music first and they would write the melody. Because it's easier to write a melody when you're not bound by the rhythm of the lyrics. Even though someone just said that the lyrics suggest rhythm, but Elton has some really sophisticated rhythms in his music. I think probably because of Bernie's lyrics. He's got some very interesting rhythms to his lyrics. And you know, some people, somebody said Florian, Meshuggah writes lyrics first. Only band. I think Rush did. I think Neil Peart might have written the Rush lyrics first too. I don't know if that's true or not, but he always wrote. He wrote the lyrics to all the Rush songs. So, you know, it's really. I'd be curious. I would say from the bands that I've worked with, the 750 bands I've worked with, 99% of them wrote the music first. So Lennon is great. HK said that's why I named my daughter after him. Okay, quit drinking in the middle of my statement, dude. Man, Bob, come on. Who's my favorite prog band? UK, probably. The first UK record is my favorite prog record, I think. But I mean, there's a lot of prog records. I love Genesis, and I love King Crimson, and I love, I love a lot of prog bands. I love Rush, early Rush. One of my favorite records, honestly, of the Genesis records, I love the Peter Gabriel records, and I love Trick of the Tail and Wind and Weathering. Those were great records. Fragile by Yes is a great record. But 2112, I like Farewell to Kings and Hemispheres. Those two are great, great records. Elliott Smith was amazing. Sigur Rós, killer. So a good vinyl pressing of old King Crimson records. You know, I was talking about vinyl on my other channel the other day, how in the 80s vinyl started to get real cheap and really flexible, and everybody's, saying vinyl, vinyl, vinyl. There was a lot of Dream Theater. I love Dream Theater too. Vinyl started getting really crappy then. So favorite Beatles solo record? You mean solo record of the Beatles? Man, boy, probably George Harrison's first record. They had a lot of great songs. Ram was a great record. Man, the Beatles had so many great solo records. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I saw something about that. I really liked Brain Salad Surgery when I was a kid. Double Fantasy, that was a cool record. And I love the Doors. Oh man, I love the Doors. I don't care what anybody says, I love the Doors. Queen's first two records. Solo Tom York record, yes. Scorpions with what? That's Ray Manzarek was a genius. I love Ray Manzarek. There's something about the Doors records that have an unbelievably great atmosphere that I don't think anyone ever captured. King's X, I love Ty Tabor and his guitar sound, and I talked about this on a live stream where I was talking about the Dogman record is one of the best sounding records. That's a Brendan O'Brien production, and it is so fat. If you want a reference for a rock record, check out that record. The Doors not having bass is unique, yes. I mean, everything about the Doors was very unique, I think. What do I think about Bon Jovi? I got to meet John Bon Jovi one time, and it was at Ocean Way Studios in LA, and he was recording there, and I was with Desmond Child, who had co-written some of their biggest hits with him. And I went in, Desmond introduced me to him and Richie Sambora, and he didn't look anything like he does on when you see him in pictures or on video. And Richie Sambora was way shorter than I thought he would be. He didn't look at all like he does on TV or anything. His manager, Doc McGee, I've met Doc, and he was a very nice guy. Let's see here. Did you guys even see me do that block there? I did a block. I didn't even say anything. Well, I said something about it then. Let's see here. Early Van Halen records, great minimal overdubs, yeah. First record is one of the greatest rock records ever, I think. The guitar sound. The guitar in the left speaker, the reverb in the right speaker. One thing I'll say, though, about that is that Sunset Sound, Frederick, that's correct. In LA, I actually worked there a couple times, and it's a really cool studio, and they have pictures of those Van Halen sessions there. I have an amp back here that I had modded with a Jose Hernando mod. He's the one that did Van Halen's. I think he did the mods on the... He either was a Van Halen guitar tech or did the original mod that he got the Brown sound with on the first record. His Super Lead Plexi. I have a Super Lead Plexi back there. But one of the things that people don't think about when they try to mimic Van Halen's sound on that is that, number one, Van Halen had reverb that was done afterwards, like I said, was panned. And the other thing about it is that I guarantee you the sound was EQ'd on the console. And it does have a delayed reverb, Peter says that in the other channel. That's correct. As a matter of fact, that's why it sounds like it's in stereo. A lot of the old records, this is an old recording technique, mixing technique actually, that is on all the Stones records, Zeppelin records, anything from the 70s you'll find it on, late 60s and 70s. You'll have a record, or you'll have a sound recorded and placed in one speaker, and then the effect will be in the other speaker, typically reverb. If you listen to, so the whole Van Halen record is like that. The reverb makes it actually in stereo. Okay, so the dry sound in one, the wet sound in the other. That's why it doesn't sound unbalanced. To people's ears, if you isolate the right speaker, you'll just hear the reverb on Van Halen. Now, this is how they would make things that were hard panned sound great. I'll give you an example of this. A great song, Stairway to Heaven. If you take Stairway to Heaven, Jimmy Page's guitar comes in on the right channel. The reverb's in the left channel. And then John Paul Jones does his 4-part recorder part, which is in the right channel, with a reverb in the left channel. Okay, so the reverb goes with the dry acoustic guitar, and the reverb of the acoustic guitar goes with the dry recorders. If you play Angie by the Rolling Stones, it starts with Keith Richards playing the guitar part, Angie. He plays it, and the reverb's in the right speaker, and then the piano comes in the right speaker with the reverb in the left speaker. But when it goes to the chorus and the second acoustic comes in to balance it out, they quickly move the piano to the center of they do actually a move. And then the piano is in the center from there on through the piano solo. So this is a technique as a way to fill out the stereo spectrum, they would use reverb to do that. This was a really, really great sound that people do not use like that anymore. It's a great technique, and it makes your mixes much cleaner because you have the dry sound with the reverb where it's not really blending in the same way there. So, and it acts as a pad. That's what's great about it. So that when you bring in the next dry instrument, so when the 4-part recorder thing in Stairway to Heaven come in after the intro phrase, then that there is basking in the reverb of the acoustic guitar, and the reverb of the 4-part recorder part that's on there is the acoustic guitar is basking in that reverb, and it's like a pad. And this is something, if I could play these songs, I would actually do videos on this kind of stuff. And when I do my production course, I'm going to do a production course, and I'm going to talk about that because it's really, really important and hip. And I am going to do my reverb plate video. Yes, please don't stop streaming. I'm going to stop streaming right about now. Do it on Vimeo. Does Vimeo not let you do that? I have a Vimeo account, actually, but I don't have anything up there. Like a pad. Okay, so I think I'm good right now. This has been a lot of material here. An hour and 15-minute live stream. This is the longest live stream by 3 minutes I've ever done. If you guys want to sign up to my Rick Beato Live other YouTube channel, subscribe to it right now. And there's not a discount code on the Beato book. It's discounted, period, through tomorrow. So buy my book, support me that way, buy my record, my courses, my new advanced harmonic concept courses. And you guys are amazing. We did a lot of stuff today. This was killer. So really, really appreciate it. I'm going to go eat some dinner, and my new course is out. Yes. I'm going to go eat some dinner and think about all this stuff today. And I'm going to write to some of these people that I'm going to get on my sounding off. And please tell me when I'm saying Try and me, okay, if you can. I appreciate that. I might go on live later tonight. We'll see. Thank you. You guys rock. Bye.